While pre-Clovis people were the first to settle the Americas, and Clovis in the Western Stem tradition the earliest recognized cultures in North America, the later Paleoindian groups still have much to tell archaeologists about how the Americas were populated. Later Paleoindian peoples were still exploring areas that hadn't ever been seen by humans, and encountering environments and animals no longer present today. In the Arctic, Alaska, one of these Paleoindian complexes dealt with the harsh climate and rugged landscape of this region. This archaeological culture is the Mesa Complex. While one of several Paleoindian complexes in Alaska, the Mesa Complex presents a unique look into Arctic life around the Pleistocene-Holocene transition. In this video, I flintknapped the style projectile point associated with the Mesa Complex. The Mesa site, the type site for the Mesa Complex, is located in an extremely remote area of northern Alaska. Located 150 kilometers from the Arctic Circle, it is more than 100 miles from the nearest human settlement, and the nearest road is another 60 miles further than that. The Mesa site was first discovered in 1978 as part of a compliance survey for the Bureau of Land Management. A nearby airstrip and well site was proposed, and the igneous rock outcrop that the Mesa site was upon was proposed as the source of material for constructing these. The presence of so many artifacts and intact subsurface deposits led to further investigation of the site. Archaeological excavations started in 1980, and intensive excavation at the site continued until 1999. The Ivotech airstrip is 6 miles north of the site and was originally built for oil and gas explorations in the 1970s. All personnel, fuel, and gear had to be flown in with fixed-wing aircraft to this airstrip. From here, a helicopter shuttled people and equipment to and from the site. At times, the luxury of the helicopter was unavailable, and supplies were airdropped to the site at low altitudes, attached to parachutes. Radio was the only form of outside communication available, and was dependent on weather for its effectiveness. Tents functioned for sleeping quarters, storage, and lab space. Arctic wildlife abounded around and inside the camp. Grizzlies were a source of concern, and those that were spotted close to entering the camp had to be chased away using the helicopter. Wolves, not quite a threat like the bears were, passed through the camp on multiple occasions. The archaeologists here at Mesa often found their camp surrounded by caribou, numbering in the hundreds and even thousands. While the Mesa site is the type site for the Mesa Complex, there are other Mesa Complex sites, notably the Speen Mountain site, the Bedwell site, and the Hilltop site. There were 366 bifaces recovered at Mesa. This number includes projectile points, other finished bifaces, preforms, and manufacturing failures. 154 projectile points were found at Mesa, both whole and fragmentary. Most of the fragmentary pieces are basal portions of points. Mesa projectile points are lanceolate with parallel pressure flaking. In cross-section, these points are lenticular or even diamond-shaped, and are fairly robust in thickness despite good workmanship. Most of the points have basal thinning, which leads to a concave base. Basal styles of projectile points across the site range from deeply concave, with distinct basal ears, to extravate, rounded bases. Some points have flute-like flakes extending up from the base, but these tend to be the result of pressure flaking rather than from percussion in making flutes. Heavy basal edge grinding is present on nearly all projectile points. Many of the points have been resharpened along the cutting edge up from this point, creating a distinct shoulder where the hafting portion of the point begins. The hafting area of Mesa points ranges from 1/3 to 1/2 of the total length of the point. Mesa projectile points range in length from 5 to 10 centimeters, and range in width from 16 to 28 millimeters. In thickness, Mesa points range from 5 to 10 millimeters. This thickness would have made them robust and durable. This means that the point that I'm making turned out on the thin side. Based on their size and time period, these points would have been used as atlatl darts. It is suggested by researchers who have worked with Mesa artifacts that resharpened projectile points may have been used as knives. 20 projectile points for Mesa were examined using microwire analysis. Of these, 17 show striations in polishing that are the result of friction from a binding agent in the haft of a point. There are also longer, thinner bifaces at Mesa, which lack the parallel pressure flaking. These bifaces may have been intended as knives, or as lance heads. In terms of other lithic tools, 6 well-made scrapers were found at Mesa. Gravers are flake tools with spurs for incising, scribing, and perforating, and are thought to have been used for making and repairing hunting equipment. About 70 gravers were recovered in the Mesa assemblage. The Mesa site is located on gently rolling tundra. The Mesa itself is on an east-west running ridge that is approximately 800 by 300 feet wide. The southwest, west, and northwest faces of the Mesa are sheer, but the other sides are steep, but they are transversable by foot. During the last glacial maximum, the northern limit of the glaciation was about 7 miles south of the Mesa site. This likely made the location of the Mesa site very appealing to the Paleo peoples moving into the region. This area would have been colder and drier than it is now. This area In Paleoindian times, this area would have been colder and drier than it is now, but only slightly. Across the site, artifacts are found in distinct clusters. These clusters are often in the vicinity of a hearth feature, or in multiple hearths. Many artifacts and some features are visible on the ground surface, although some areas of the site have better deposition and artifacts are found in well-buried soil deposits. The only archaeological features found at Mesa are hearths. There were 40 of these ancient fire pits discovered at the site. For sites in the region, and of this age, the preservation of these features is unusually good. Most were buried in soils relatively quickly after their use, and this protected them from the erosional forces that could be found at the site. These hearths are not ringed or lined by rocks, and appear to have been dug as shallow depressions into the underlying shattered bedrock. The hearths at Mesa rarely exceed dimensions of 5 inches in depth and 8 inches in diameter. There is not evidence that these hearths were used more than once as campfires. Preliminary analysis shows that the Paleoindian people at Mesa burned the same kinds of woods that can be found in this region today. The charcoal belongs to the woods willow, poplar, and alder. Some of the hearths have pieces of burnt bone in them. One hearth in particular has a large limestone slab placed adjacent to it. These limestone slabs are likely indicative of food preparation, like a modern countertop or cutting board. 51 radiocarbon dates have been taken from 28 of the 40 hearths found at Mesa. The dates center around a range of 9700 to 10,200 before present, suggesting an age of around 10,000 BP being the primary period of occupation at the Mesa site. This range of time was right around the Pleistocene-Holocene transition. About 45 different lithic materials were used at Mesa. Around 80% of the material used was 4 different varieties of Lisburn and Akmalic chert. Black Lisburn chert is the only local chert source, and comprised 50% of the tools and assemblage found at Mesa. All of the cherts are from deposits originating in the Brooks Range. Obsidian, likely originating from a source 200 miles distant, was used for making one tool, a graver, and about 60 flakes. Obsidian was not used for making any of the projectile points that were found at Mesa. At other sites, like Speen Mountain, argillite was used by the Mesa Complex Paleoindians. Since I do not have access to any Brooks Range cherts, or any lithic material from Alaska, I chose to use Georgetown flint from Texas for flintknapping my Mesa point. Caribou are one of the most abundant large Arctic mammals, and almost certainly would have been the main food resource for the people at the Mesa site. However, there isn't direct evidence to suggest that this is what their main diet was. Other Arctic animals would have been hunted by Mesa Complex Paleoindians as well. Muskox and bison would have been the other large game animals available to Mesa site hunters. Bison went extinct in Arctic Alaska at the end of the Pleistocene, and the bison living in the region during the time Mesa was occupied were a different species from the modern bison, and would have been either Bison priscus or Bison occidentalis. The bone fragments recovered in the hearths at the Mesa site could not be identified visually or with genetic testing, so we don't know what the people at the Mesa site were eating. The radiocarbon dates taken from the charcoal in the hearths at Mesa show that this complex is not a pre-Clovis assemblage, but part of a later Paleoindian adaptation. It could simply be a later, northward migration of Paleo peoples, or perhaps something more complex that we don't fully understand. The Mesa Complex is noted as being similar to High Plains Paleoindian traditions, and researchers at Mesa suggest a connection between these different groups. This is different from other Alaskan and Eastern Beringian tool complexes, which are more blade and core focused. Contrary to this, the Mesa Complex is very bifacial focused. The Mesa site, based on analysis of the tool assemblage and geomorphology, is likely to have functioned as a hunting outlook. The broken bases of projectile points are common at Mesa, more common than the tips of points. It is likely that many projectile points lost their front sections when hunters missed their quarry or struck hard bone. Broken bases of points still left in the haft were taken out of the haft and retooled at the Mesa site, replaced with fresh projectile points. The archaeological evidence at Mesa suggests that the main activity here was the repair, replacement, and production of projectile points. The hearths here are ephemeral and did not see much reuse, meaning people did not live here for extended periods of time. Mesa Complex Paleoindians were dealing with a rough environment that was challenging to live in, both 10,000 years ago and in present times. The Mesa site gives a look into the lives of these hunter-gatherers. Hopefully, future archaeological research will paint a clearer picture of the Paleoindian era in Arctic Alaska.